All right, well, let's get started as others are still joining. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. We are going to present to you how to find happiness in the dark. So, my name is Sadie May, and I'm one of the wellness coordinators for Healthy Lifestyles. Well, actually, at the moment, I am the only wellness coordinator for Healthy Lifestyles. If those of you who knew our former coordinator, Megan Tucker, she has taken another position, so we are hiring right now for my partner in this mission. But anyway, I also have Jayne Hansen with me today. She is one of our fabulous health educators, and you probably know her best from our Mindful Monday meditations. She's in charge of creating those and distributing those every week. And so today we want to talk about how you can find happiness in this crazy time. We're in the middle of winter, a pretty weird winter too. It doesn't feel like it's quite started yet, but it's still cold out. It's just a very, very weird setting right now. We're also in the middle of a pandemic. And we're living in this very divisive society. And there are a million reasons to feel sad, scared, angry. So we want to help you discover ways to find that happiness again during figuratively dark times and literal dark times. And then find ways to pull yourself out of a rut, which a lot of us may be feeling right now. But before we begin, I am going to put in the chat box how you can sign in for your Healthy Lifestyles points today. And I've known in the past a couple of people have had issues with their chat box. If you rejoin the meeting by going to the calendar invite rather than clicking on the pop-up that comes up, it should allow you to access your chat box. But if you still are unable to go to your chat box, you can go to myhealthylifestyles.slco.org. I'll put that in the chat. Well, I guess you can't see it if you're not seeing the chat box, but that's another way that we can send you the sign-in sheet. All righty. So to begin, Jayne, you're seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I had myself on mute.
No prob. So first, let's define what happiness is. There are many definitions of this word as I was doing my research. The Oxford English Dictionary describes it as happiness is feeling or showing joy or any sort of contentment, while positive psychology defines happiness as experiencing those positive emotions such as joy, hope, bliss, and even curiosity. Other psychologists argue that happiness is life satisfaction, appreciation for life, finding moments of joy. And despite there being several definitions, many researchers agree on what happiness actually feels like. It's a good mood, positive emotions that I mentioned before, some sort of enjoyment. But they are reluctant to agree on the scope of happiness, which I found incredibly interesting. So psychologists and researchers don't agree on the definition or the scope, but they do agree on what happiness is not. And happiness is not the absence of negative emotions. A happy person experiences a spectrum of feelings, but the frequency of experiencing negative emotions differ, obviously, from person to person, because nobody's immune to life's negative emotions. And a happy person is able to decipher between using negative emotions as an ability to grow rather than just seeing them as the opposition of happiness. And something else I want to point out as we're defining this is happiness doesn't come naturally to anybody. It is in our DNA to have responses to negative emotions. We talk about this a lot with the flight or fight response. We need those moments of fear and anxiety as survival. It may not be so apparent today as it was back in the caveman days, but those were emotions that helped us survive. So those were the ones that were going to create longevity in our lives compared to today when they seem to be hindering our survival. So our bodies are completely equipped to feeling stress emotions to survive, and that can be the same for animals as well. If you have a bear, on the prowl and you have this moth, I guess you could say, because bears love to get their protein from moths. If you have a moth that's not feeling any sort of stress that somebody's hunting it, it is going to get eaten. So I want to just make it clear that finding these happiness emotions are something we need to create because it doesn't come naturally to us because our survival instincts take over. All right, so as we're talking about happiness, I want to pose this question to you. So please use the chat box to answer it. What do you think would make you happy today? Getting 8 hours of sleep from Mary. That's a good one. Never having to wear a mask, seeing my grandkids. Sunshine, walk in the park, completing my project. Oh, I love how quickly these are coming in. Retirement, hiking, hearing that my grandson's feeling better. It's summertime. Nice walk on a beautiful day. New president, painting, going to a football game. I love the variety that we're seeing. This is amazing. Fresh, clean sheets. Ooh, I love these even simple things. Wonderful. I'm actually shocked to hear there wasn't more people saying this pandemic to be over. I'm sure that would make us all happy. So, with that question being said, I want to talk to you about recent research. So, there's the Happiness Institute does a lot of research in the world to see what countries, what historical events, what that does to our happiness over time. So the Happiness Research Institute has been conducting a study of over 3,200 people in 97 countries every 3 months since coronavirus started. And they found a correlation between rising COVID cases and increased anxiety and boredom. I'm sure that is no surprise to any of you that those two would correlate. But to put it in perspective, the results of the study concluded that for every COVID case, 72 people have increases in anxiety. So as you see numbers on the local news of new cases, just know for every case, 72 people have an increase of anxiety. So one person's physical health is impaired, while 72 other people have a hit to their mental health. So you can see how we are going to feel the repercussions of this over time, obviously, with not only our physical health, but mental health. So that's why it's really important for us to actively find ways to increase our happiness right now. Let's see if we have anything else. Having food that I could cook to be tasty. Oh yeah, I love that, Varden. Thank you all for sharing that. All right, well, since we are already brainstorming things that can make us happy, I want each of you to get out a pen or paper, or you can type this into your phone or computer, and let's spend about 3 minutes making a list of things that bring you joy. And so I've created my list right here of different things that I have put down. It can be activities, it can be people, it can be things, it could be future projects, look like people had said. So let's take about 3 minutes. So at 12:13, we'll come back together.
Sadie, I'm not sure. There's just been a few chats in the comments that there are two gray boxes on the screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing and then reshare. Let's see that. I wonder if that is my chat box and participants box. I'll move them. Hopefully that will help. Are you seeing that, Jayne? The gray
Um,
boxes?
no, I'm not seeing it right now. So, but I'll let you know if it comes back on. Yeah, I think they
Oh,
just moved. I think you just moved them. So we're good.
perfect. Good to know that it's the chat box and participant box that blocks that.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more minutes. I want to see if you can get up to 50 things that bring you joy. WebEx should have a setting to play some background music, some elevator music for these kinds of activities. One more minute. You could even reflect on memories, things in the past that brought you joy or experiences. Okay, let's bring it back together. So I wanted you to create this list as a resource that you can use when you're feeling moments of worry or mundaneness. I mean, every day is starting to feel like Groundhog Day with COVID. And so if you have a list of things that you can reflect on, show gratitude for, or pick something from your list to engage in rather than scrolling through the news is something that I find myself doing a lot that you the minutes just fly by when I could have used that time to read a book, scrapbook, do some yoga, journal, all of these different activities on my list that I could have done during that time that I was kind of wasting away with things that weren't bringing me joy. So I challenge all of you today to create more to this list, maybe up to 50 or 100 items that bring you joy. And then today we are going to touch on different things that you could probably add to this list. And so finding that joy, back to the Happiness Research Institute, they conducted another study called the Happy Memory Study. And it was reported that the most significant and important experiences that people reflected on that said they were happy memories were firsts. So the first time they visited a new country, their first love, maybe first time they went skydiving or seeing their child's first steps, those seem to be memories or moments of joy that stuck out the most to them. So challenge yourself to do something for the first time. It can help you slow down time. It can help you create new memories to add to this list of finding joy. And then this will be another way for you to find happiness during these dark times is finding something new. I mean, of course, it doesn't have to be something extreme as skydiving. It can be simple as trying foods that you've never tasted before, reading books that you've never read. We have the Salt Lake County Library who has so many resources for us to get audiobooks or ebooks straight to our cell phones or iPads. Listening to new music or making a new playlist or even trying out a new grocery store, something very small that we can do that is going to not only create happiness, but create that curiosity. And to add upon this, until the mid 1990s, scientists believed that you were born with the same amount of brain cells that you died with. But today we know that your new brain cell growth happens throughout your entire life. And the best way to build new brain cells is learning something new. And Jayne wanted me to point out to all of you that January is actually National New Hobby Month. So what better time to start learning something new and to forge those new brain cells while creating happiness simultaneously. So that is something I want you to share in the chat box as well. Have you tried anything new since the beginning of the new year? I'll tell you a little bit about something I did recently is I did the extreme sledding at Soldier Hollow, which is a perfect activity to do during the pandemic because you have to be separated 6 feet on the conveyor belt anyway, but you get going really fast down that mountain. So if you go, wear lots of padding just in case. But that was something new that I did. And so not only was I having fun, maybe I was building new brain cells since it was something totally new. All right. Somebody said, or Vivian started a bullet journal. Learning faux calligraphy. Tried snowshoeing for the first time. Awesome. Brush lettering. Looks like we got a lot of calligraphy going on. Started a small business. Making wreaths. Amazing. Cooking vegan. Awesome. Learning Xbox. Perfect activity right now. Being stuck in the house. Learning Italian. Gratitude journal every night. Wonderful. Keep sharing as we go throughout, because then maybe that will spark ideas for other people. Learning a program for writing. Choose your own adventure stories. Oh, I love this. You are building so many new brain cells. All right, I'm going to leave the time over to Jayne, and she's going to talk more about letting go of control.
Awesome. Thanks, Sadie. You guys have already put so many amazing ideas in the chat box. I'm excited. Maybe I should pick up a new language or something. That's really cool. So, I think one of the biggest barriers for us to in our ability to find joy, it excuse me, is this need for control. And at least for myself, right? I find that when I want more control over the situation or the outcome, that I am more stressed out. So when we let go of our need for control, we experience increased joy, increased connection with ourselves and with others, freedom, peace, and support. So we're going to go through a few helpful tips that will help us let go of this need for control. So the first one is mindfulness practice. Of course, like Sadie said, I love mindful practice. And so if you've been around for healthy lifestyles for a little bit, you'll know that we do Mindful Mondays. Each Monday, we send out a Mindful Monday that you can participate in that day, but also throughout the week. And so here's just a few of the ones that we offer. There's many more on our YouTube channel, but you can also find them on our website. But we've got mindful breathing, loving kindness meditation. A few of my favorites are the body scan, where you go through each body part and you are able to just kind of relax them and connect with your body, seeing what feels nice and what doesn't feel nice, and then you can kind of explore that. Open heart meditation, same thing. It's a beautiful connection with your own self. Guided visualizations, positive body image. So I'm just curious if you've participated in a Mindful Monday. In the chat box, just say whether you felt like it was positive, it had a positive effect on your mental health or your emotional health. Positive, yes. Yes, loved it. Very relaxing and calming. Awesome. So you guys are experiencing just what the researchers have always exclaimed about mindfulness is that it is an opportunity for us to decrease our stress levels. And I mean, who doesn't want that, right? To decrease stress and increase our joy. And I have found just through my own meditation practice of mindfulness is that I often am just more in tune with the present moment. And when I am living in the now and focusing on the present, I'm letting go of my need for control. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick mindful breathing meditation. What I'm going to want you to do is just get into a comfortable position, whether you're sitting or standing. Just make sure that your posture is, you've got a straight back and both feet are on the floor, uncrossed. So I want you to close your eyes and just bring your awareness to your breath. Don't try to manipulate your breath in any way. Just breathe normally and naturally. Recognize how your stomach rises and falls with each inhale and each exhale. And just be here in this exact moment. Not trying to change anything or go anywhere. On my count, we will take 5 deep, meaningful breaths. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. This small act of mindfulness allows you to refocus and recommit to the present moment. I love to practice just 5 short mindful breaths before a presentation or before an anxious feeling, if I'm experiencing any anxiety for the day, or you can determine when you want to use this mindfulness practice of mindful breathing, but honestly, it is so beneficial to your health. Also, just by that act of breathing, taking 5 deep, meaningful breaths, researchers have found that it allows your brain cells to fire more quickly and you're able to be more present, so you can perform to the best of your abilities, which is awesome. So practicing mindfulness allows us to grow with life's most challenging moments, right? So it helps us live in the present, focus on the now, rather than clinging on to control, and then we're no longer living in the present, we're living in the future or the past. So go ahead and change the slide for me, Sadie. Awesome. Thank you. So the next one is positive affirmations. And we've all heard that saying. It's very powerful. My mom always tells me we can't control the way the others act. We can only control the way we act or we react. And positive affirmations are a great way for us to stay in tune with our emotions so that when difficulties arise, we still have the confidence we need to overcome the challenges that we're experiencing. So just a few of my personal favorites for, finding happiness in dark moments is, I trust that everything will happen the way that it's intended to. I honor and love myself. How often do we say that to ourselves? I am guilty of not saying that enough. I truly need to say that more often of, if I don't love myself, who's going to? So just keep that in mind. And there's no need to be in control of the outcome. What will be, will be. That one's so difficult. Even if things don't go the way I planned, I will be okay and overcome. And I'm thankful for the many opportunities of growth I receive. I have found for myself that positive affirmations just get me in the right mindset, and they provide me with the confidence that I need to just carry on. And a few of my favorite ways to practice positive affirmations are in front of the mirror when I'm getting ready. So if I'm, brushing my teeth and I see a pimple on my face, rather than shifting to negative thoughts like, oh, I do not look my best today, why don't I say something more positive? A positive affirmation such as, today I am capable of doing anything I set my mind to. So that's one way. Another way I like to repeat a positive affirmation is before a meditation practice or a yoga practice. You kind of set that mantra, right? If you've participated in anything like that before, they have probably explained to you that you can set your intention, set your mantra. So you can set one for the day, and it can run through your mind over and over. Another way I enjoy doing it is in the car when I'm by myself. I just kind of give myself a little pep talk. And positive affirmations can be anything you need. They're personal and they're for you. So just keep that in mind. They don't have to be specific. They can be very personal, but you should definitely do this if you're seeking for more self-confidence or more joy, because if you're not gonna talk yourself up, who is? And then the next one is reaching out for support. So these are the cute little frogs just helping each other out. So if your for control is so great that it inhibits your ability to experience any sort of joy, reach out for support. Reach out for a a trusted family member or a friend. And if you find that that is not helping, reach out to someone for professional help. Oh, I'm seeing some things. No, not quite. This is for stop talking negative to myself. So the county library. No, not quite. Quite a while ago, I stopped talking negative to myself. I wouldn't say it to someone else. I wouldn't say it to myself either. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Taped to my desk. Sorry, I'm a strong, independent woman and will achieve my goals. I love that. I collect a positive quote for the week. Oh, what a great idea! And put them on my whiteboard at my work or my journal. I love that. Thank you so much for those comments. It's amazing what the power of a positive thought or a positive saying can do to increase your own personal happiness. So just to go back to this for one moment, the ability to reach out for support, that having that conversation with someone else, it encourages you, it strengthens your relationship, your bond. But if it becomes, a hindrance to the other person or for yourself, seek professional help. And Sadie will talk a little bit more about some resources that are available to county employees for that.
All right. Thank you, Jayne.
Yeah.
I am going to shift a little bit from what Jayne was talking about and highlight a culture that is fantastic at surviving the winter and finding meaning during dark times. So nobody knows this better than the Danish. And so They have a lifestyle that was coined by them known as Hygge. And so if I want to know if, oh yeah, Valina, yes, Valina, she is actually works in our county IT and she is a fanatic about Hygge and that she actually inspired me and got me all interested in this and so I could share it with all of you. So to let you know a little bit more about it, in the US, we would describe um, Hygge as warmth, comfort, coziness. The Danish describe it as a special feeling or moment. And it was created as a way to survive boredom and cold and dark and sameness. Oh, one second, let me mute everybody. Alrighty, there we go. And so I want to know, has anyone heard of this before? Looks like a couple people. Mary says love it. Anyone else heard of this before? Yes, great book out about the library. Awesome. I might have heard of it. Wonderful. It's all the rage right now about being part of this lifestyle and embracing simplicity. So you may have heard of Marie Kondo that talks about if it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it. And so it kind of falls into that same lines. And researchers have studied the Danish and how they are able to have less and enjoy more. And they actually are discovering that the Danish are the happiest people in the world, and they coin it back to this lifestyle because it acts as a buffer to stress hormones. It's a way to decompress after a long day, to be in the moment, to express gratitude, to be with each other. So the biggest hug concept out there is not being in a hurry. And Valina actually taught me this saying, but there is no such thing as bad weather, just unsuitable clothing. So that's what the Danish say. We just, instead of changing the seasons, we need to change our mindset and the different activities that we are doing. So to kind of give you more of an idea of what this is, I have posted some pictures. And so it's using all of our senses to create this lifestyle, whether it's with candles that we see, hearing a fire going, tasting warm drinks as hot cocoa, tea, also feeling cozy under a nice warm blanket and reading a book is completely hygge. So you may already do these things in your daily life, like taking a warm bath, lighting some candles, having essential oils, and it's actually part of this lifestyle that is making this culture known as the happiest people in the world. So keep doing these things because it is good for your health. And if we can do them at least 1 hour each week to sit down, light some candles, maybe read a book from the county library, it is going to be beneficial to your health. And you can also get family involved. Oh, it says there's also a great song about hygge and Frozen Broadway musical. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. Heard about it through the Food Nanny. Yes, it's a Hallmark series, The Good Witch. Wonderful. It is probably things you already do in your daily life when you think of wintertime and maybe the holidays of being gathered around the fire and spending time with one another. It's just putting it into a concept and how we can create it in our lives. Okay, now Jayne's going to talk to us about our thoughts.
Awesome. So there are, we all experience harmful thoughts, right? Harmful thoughts are a natural occurrence. It's a part of our daily life, but do harmful thoughts tear you down or do they build you up? So thinking about that, for myself, I've tried to recognize how harmful thoughts can actually be a motivator for me, or I can become more resilient to my harmful thoughts. So there's 4 types of thoughts, and you've got this all or nothing, which is you only see things as good or bad. There's no middle ground, right? You're either a good, like there's good things or bad things. Filtering. So this is something that we magnify negative aspects, right? You're ignoring the good, you're only seeing the bad, which honestly, for me, that happens a lot. I filter the good and only see the bad. I have to remind myself, no, that didn't actually happen. Self-labeling, this is a personal attack where we call ourselves out, right? We call ourselves a bad name. Insert whatever your choice is, right? Or this gloom and doom. So this is just the catastrophizing of something bad. So you anticipate the worst. Starbucks got my coffee order wrong, so, the rest of my day is just going to be the pits. But that's not always true. So I want to ask you, what do you do when you experience one of these harmful thoughts? Does it ruin the rest of your day? You flip it. I love that. That's awesome. So Sadie and I were having this conversation the other day where she was like, sometimes I feel like you have a harmful thought, but you just kind of need to keep going with your thought, and eventually you'll turn the thought around. No, reframe and keep perspective. I love that. It's true. So for myself, I tell myself to snap out of it. It will get better. It has to, right? It has to get better. I love that, you guys. Awesome. So for myself, it's all about challenging those negative thoughts. So when we challenge negative thoughts, we are challenging our inner critic. And it sounds like you guys do just that. You have to reframe your mind. You have to flip it, right? You have to tell yourself that it will get better. Sometimes it's really difficult to challenge your negative thinking. But when we challenge it, it actually kind of becomes second nature for us, which is so cool. So for myself, I have found that asking a follow-up question is the way to go. So that's kind of how we can challenge our inner critic. So for instance, if my thought is, oh, I can't do a good job on that work project, it's way out of my comfort zone, I need to keep going with that thought or flip that thought, meaning, well, how do I know if I can't do a good job? I've never done it before. And what if I'm like really good at it? And what if I actually learn something new or develop a new skill? So it's challenging your inner critic. And here are a few things. This was mentioned earlier before, but what would I tell a friend if he or she had the same thought? What would a loved one say about my thought? Am I 100% sure that blank will happen? Is it so important that my future depends on it? That's another one. What's the worst that could happen? If the worst did happen, what would I do to cope with or handle it? And I think this last one is important, and it leads us into the story that I'm going to share. But I just want to emphasize we're our own worst critic, but we're also our best cheerleader. So reframing our thoughts, challenging our inner critic is key. So I'm going to share a story with you about Michael Phelps in the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games. And this is from a story from the Happiness Lab podcast. If you guys are new to the Happiness Lab podcast, seriously, you should give it a listen. It's incredible. Dr. Laurie Santos, she's a professor at Yale University, and she started this Happiness Lab because she noticed that students of hers at Yale were unhappy. And she was like, how are you so unhappy? You've worked your whole life for this moment to be here at Yale, and you're so doom and gloom. So she created a course curriculum about the Happiness Lab podcast. the Happiness Lab, and it became the most attended class at Yale University. And because it was so popular, she decided, I'm going to put this all online. I'm going to make a podcast so all of us can enjoy it. A Yale University class for free with no assignments. So definitely check it out. It's really cool. But in her 7th episode, she interviews Michael Phelps' coach, Bob Bauman. And Coach Bauman coached Michael Phelps to 23 out of the 28 Olympic gold medals that he received. And I mean, we all know he's the most decorated Olympian. But Coach Bauman said that he wasn't always disciplined, right? He had charisma for the sport. He was just physically, he could outdo his opponents, but mentally he wasn't as strong as he needed to be. And his coach really worked hard with him for positive thinking and creating, visual stimuli so that he could be successful in his sport. So for one day at practice, Bob Bauman asks Michael Phelps, he says, so tell me, what are your goals? Like, where do you want to go with this sport? And Michael says to him, I want to swim in the Olympic Games. And his coach was like, well, yeah, most swimmers do, but what do you want? How do you want that to go for you? Like, do you want a medal? Do you want to, like, which Olympics do you want to go to? So he set out specific goals, and he encouraged Michael to write them out and put them on his refrigerator. And we all know that in order to sustain Michael physically, he was eating like, I don't even know how many calories a day, but he had to eat so much for, his size and his activity level. So he starts, every time he goes to the refrigerator, he's reminded that he's going to take gold in the Beijing 2008 Olympic Games. And so he's reminded of this goal. And Bob also teaches him this mindfulness skill of visualization. And researchers have found that visualization practice actually has the potential. Our brains are so powerful that we can't tell the difference between whether we're actually there or if we have just visualized it. So we've all had dreams before where they're so vivid, where we're like, did I dream that, or did that actually happen? I know I've definitely had those experiences, but our minds are so powerful. So it's an incredible tool to practice when you're preparing yourself for an event or, a presentation of some kind, where you can visualize yourself being successful, and that will happen because you've done it before. It becomes second nature to you. So Coach Bauman says to Michael, I want you to create a mental movie of yourself in this race. Smell the pool, smell the chlorine, visualize yourself putting your swim cap on, your goggles on. Imagine how the crowd is sounding, what lane you're going to be swimming in. Swim the race in your mind before you swim it in Beijing. So that's what he did. So fast forward, he's at the start line for the men's 200-meter butterfly final. And he's at the Olympic Games. He jumps in the pool, and really, a disaster for a positive thinker has just striked. In the first 50 meters, his goggles completely fill up with water. And rules are that you can't break stroke. So if he were to fix his goggles, he'd break stroke, he'd be disqualified. So he's stuck with the goggles. He's swimming with water in them. By the time he's halfway through the race, which is 100 meters, he's blind. Like his goggles are completely full and he is just relying on, just the feel of being in the pool. So I just want you to imagine this for a second. You're Michael freaking Phelps. You've trained your whole life for this moment. Every time you walk to the refrigerator, you are reminded of how badly you want this gold medal. And you've played mental movie after mental movie in your mind of you being successful at this race. And you can't see a dang thing. So, what did Michael do? Well, it turns out that Michael would create negative stimuli, like negative stimulus or stimulations for himself. He'd play negative movies in his mind just as he would play positive ones. So for every negative thought he had, he would create a movie or a scenario that he could accomplish to overcome that barrier of his goal. So his coach had no idea he was doing this. So uh, when Michael's goggles completely fill up with water, he put that mental movie in his mind. He played that mental videotape of, okay, well, now I'm just going to count my strokes. So he counted his strokes, and when he hit the wall, he knew he needed 20 powerful strokes to swim back and tap the wall. So when the race ends, he rips off his goggles and his swim cap, and he tells, like his coach says, as you look back at that race, you see Michael finish, and he looks like he's someone that took last place because he couldn't see. He didn't know where his competition was. He didn't know where he was. He was just going based off of the feel of the pool and what he'd already experienced in his mind. So, I mean, we know how it ends, right? We know that he rips off his skin or his swim cap, and he not only takes gold in the men's butterfly final, but he breaks the world record. And I love that story because for us, Michael, there, I mean, I don't know, maybe one of us is good enough to go to the Olympics, but I mean, we won't experience that type of pressure as far as we've trained our entire lives for a gold medal at the Olympic Games, but we also can create visual stimulations for ourselves so that we can become successful. And he was able to accomplish his goal because he challenged his inner critic and he knew that he could do it regardless of the circumstance. And we can too, whether that's with our occupational health, finding joy and happiness in a job, or seeking a promotion, or maybe that's with our physical health where we want to accomplish goals. So let's set scenarios of us being successful in any situation. And we can also do that for our family relationships or our friendships with people. We can overcome anything we put our minds to. And I just think that's a great story of that.
When Jayne told me this story for the first time, I had never heard it before, but it sounded like a metaphor for exactly what we're going through right now. It feels like we're in this never-ending race to the finish line with the pandemic. We can't see anything. We can't see the finish line. We don't know exactly how this is going to end, but you still have to keep going. And to have this example of overcoming barriers as a way to succeed or find happiness and visualizing ourselves overcoming barriers is essential. So thank you, Jayne, for sharing that story. Okay, we are going to wrap up with our last strategy for finding happiness, and that is embracing change. Because change is the only constant that we have in this world. And so I want you to remember this formula, and it's events plus response equals the outcome. And the basic idea is that every outcome you experience in life, whether it's happiness or sadness, wellness or illness, joy or frustration, it's the result of how you responded to the event in your life. If you want to change the results in the future, you must change how you're responding to these events in your life. And we get into the habit of blaming outside issues as our outcome. For example, we blame the economy, we blame the weather, we blame our bosses, our lack of support, and so on. A great example I've heard is if you're a golfer, you've probably blamed your clubs for a bad game, but we usually never blame ourselves. And so what most people do who are successful, like Michael Phelps, is looking at, again, our response to different outcomes. It would have been very easy for him to have his goggles filled up and either fix them and get disqualified or let that diminish his optimism towards finishing the race. So that is one way that we can find happiness is just simply changing, like Jayne mentioned before, our thoughts from harmful ones to helpful thoughts, or just our responses to outcomes. I mean, not everything in life is going to be peachy and wonderful, but we can learn from every situation and knowing and looking back on experiences and seeing how you can learn from them changes what the outcome was. And so you can do that for things that have even happened in your past, just based on your view. All right. And then the last thing we want to highlight is utilizing help available to you. So some of these things that we've mentioned, you may extremely hard to maybe do positive affirmations. You're finding that very challenging for yourself, not necessarily participating in them, but not being able to think of one or complete one. Maybe it's hard to challenge your harmful thoughts. And that can be because it's something beyond your control. And so we want you to utilize the help that's available to you with the Employee Assistance Program. So Dear Oaks is who hosts that, and they have a website. It's listed here as dearoakseap.com. And because you're a Salt Lake County employee, you can go to the member login and use this password and username SLCO and utilize any of the resources there. They have counseling services, they offer wellness resources, legal help, even have caregiver help or daycare recommendations, all of those things that you could possibly need to make it easier to focus at work and to create happiness in your life because they're helping you with all the things that seem to be barriers. And if you want, you can also call the hotline. It's listed right here. And you can get 6 free counseling sessions per issue every year as a county employee. So if you need to talk to them about maybe your negative thoughts and then have another issue about maybe succeeding at work, those types of things, it's 6 free counseling sessions per issue. So
I
utilize
think,
these things.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Jayne.
I just want to piggyback off of what Sadie said. So the Deer Oaks, it really is incredible, and you will be shocked by how many resources are available on that website. If you're having a hard time navigating it, please reach out to Healthy Lifestyles. We want to help you find resources for whatever you need. So let us know. We can set up a WebEx and we can go through that with you. But truly, it is an awesome resource and it's available to you. So use it because it's really great.
Yes, thank you. And of course, we want you to maybe try one of the different options we suggested today. You don't have to do every single one because that could be extremely overwhelming. Maybe just adopt one to enhance your happiness because We hope you learned today that happiness is something that you create. It's not just thrust upon you. It doesn't just happen to certain people. It's something that we can have control over. And even when there are different barriers in the way, it's going to make it harder. But that will just make you more resilient when you can find those ways to become happier. All right, and so I have a question about the EAP, if it's a benefit for temporary employees too. I actually do not know the answer to that. If we have anyone from HR benefits on the call, I would love if you could answer that. That is also something you could check with your HR representative from your department, and they should be able to let you know, because I think some things may have changed because of COVID that they are allowing certain services, but I don't know the answer to that one, but I can definitely find out. Currently, it is during COVID. Wonderful. So it is available to temporary employees as well. And that is what we have for you today. We hope that you try something new, maybe adopt some hugga lifestyle with candles and warm blankets, challenge your harmful thoughts and inner critics, and start to visualize a happier you, because hope is on the way. And there we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with the situation that we are in these days. So if you have any questions, please unmute yourself, put it in the chat box. But I will also put in the chat box the sign in for today if you missed it at the beginning. But thank you for joining us today.